Nutty Sports Gamer here. We have a lot to cover in this episode of the 40-Year Sim. We have reached the off-season between the 95 season and the 96 season, and we got the draft lottery to start things off. The 13th pick is going to belong to the Dallas Mavericks. Mavericks selected Grant Hill last year with his number 2 pick after a trade with the Kings that brought Barkley to the Kings. Meanwhile, the Blazers are going to end up with the 12th pick. Originally belonged to the Spurs, so the Spurs pick fell outside the top 10, and they won't be able to get their own pick. Sucks for them. Warriors going to get the 11th pick of the draft. So the Hornets, by the way, were supposed to get the 12th pick, and I think they're going to end up in the top 3 now. Interesting. Orlando Magic are going to hold on to the 10th pick, just as they were slated to get. And then you got the 9th pick of the draft to come. Will it be the Timberwolves? Let's check this out. It will. The Timberwolves still unable to get a top 2 pick in this sim thus far, despite being usually pretty bad. Meanwhile, the Celtics, this is their own pick. Actually, no, they're not going to get the 8th pick. The Sixers will. The Sixers end up with pick number 8. They've had quite a few lottery picks these past couple of seasons. Meanwhile, the Celtics will hold on to the 7th spot. They're going to take the 7th pick of the 1995 draft. So now they finally don't have Bird, and I'll show you what happens to Kevin McHale. But the Celtics are going to have a clean slate moving forward. It's going to be interesting. The Hawks had a bad season, and they're ending up with the 6th pick. That's very unfortunate for them. Very, very unfortunate. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies, their first pick ever is going to be pick number 5. I was glad this happened. Listen, Raptors and Grizzlies are not allowed to get the number 1 pick until the 1999 draft. Just making sure everyone knows that. That's the rule in real life. We are honoring that rule. So no Tim Duncan to the Raptors. No, none of that. Anyone who does that, it's wrong, okay? It's not that serious, but seriously. It's not that serious, but seriously, come on. Meanwhile, Celtics, this is going to stay with the Blazers. This was a mistake by 2K that I correct. I fixed this. All right, I'll show you what I did. That's going to remain with the Blazers, not the Celtics. But don't worry, Celtics fans. I don't worry. Just don't worry about that, okay? I'll show you what I did. Hornets, meanwhile, get the 2nd pick of this draft. The Hornets, they were slated to get the 12th pick, and they end up with number 2. That's pretty big. Meanwhile, the Pistons are going to end up with the number 1 pick of the 1995 draft, which is huge. They go on a full-on tank. They traded away Ron Harper to the Bulls. They eventually traded away B.J. Armstrong and Horace Grant, get some assets, but with their own number 1 pick, with their own pick of the 95 draft, they get the number 1 pick. And I'm not going to give it away. You probably can guess who's going to go to number 1 for them. But still, that's pretty exciting for the Pistons to go from, they're only a few years removed from being the bad boys, winning the championship in 1990, right? Being a perennial playoff team. They have one really, really bad year. They tank, right? Despite Isaiah Thomas still being there, they still tank. And now they get the number 1 pick. So it all worked out for the Pistons. The Hornets, very surprising. Meanwhile, I made a deal between the Celtics and the Blazers where the Blazers would give their top 10 protected 97 pick. And then that pick is going to become unprotected in 1998. So the Celtics are at least going to get the 98 unprotected pick from the Blazers. Or the top 10 protected pick in 97. So that's the terms of that deal. Similar thing with the Pistons and the Nuggets. The Nuggets will be able to get the 97 lottery protected pick from the Pistons unless the Pistons remain poor. If they're bad in 97, then the Nuggets will get the 98 unprotected pick. So that's all settled. In 98, if the Celtics get the Blazers pick, they're going to get it. If the Nuggets get the Pistons pick, they're going to get it. So that is that. Meanwhile, player protections, right? We got the expansion draft to come. And McHale is not going to be protected. It's time for the Celtics to cut loose, to cut bait on Kevin McHale. That's a big one. Also, the Rockets aren't going to protect Doc Rivers. There's a lot of players that they could have protected or could leave unprotected, but they wanted to keep everyone. And they had B.J. Armstrong under contract, so Doc Rivers has been drafted by the Grizzlies. McHale to the Raptors, along with Hot Rod Williams, Eldon Campbell, and Sam Bowie go to Grizzlies. Tito Horford and Victor Randolph go to the Raptors. Sean Green, Kevin Edwards to the Grizzlies. Terry Davis, Todd Lichty to the Raptors. Jamie Watson, Jeff Webster to the Grizzlies. Dwayne Morton, Dave Johnson to the Raptors. Deion Thomas, Brooks Thompson to the Grizzlies. Hubert Davis, Kelvin Barrett to the Raptors. It's going to be Rowan Barrett, by the way. It's going to be R.G. Barrett's dad. I changed his name finally. Scott Williams to the Raptors. George Lynch as well goes there. Wesley Person to the Grizzlies. Pete Goodwillie to the Grizzlies as well. Carlos Rogers to the Raptors. Is that everybody? I think that is everybody. That's the expansion draft. So some interesting names involved. Not everyone that got drafted in the expansion draft stayed with the team. In real life, there were deals made after the expansion draft. Whenever, and like that would be like the goal. Like the expansion team would pick a player that they knew would have trade interest. So like Doc Rivers, there's trade interest for Doc Rivers, and the Raptors were able to take advantage of that. So, but let's move on to the 1995 NBA draft. And first up, the Pistons with the number 1 pick. They're going to select Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett is going to be a Detroit Piston. Number 1 pick, Kevin Garnett. Pretty crazy. He's going to be the future of this team. So looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. Rasheed Wallace went to North Carolina in college, is going to stay in North Carolina to play for the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets got a lucky break getting the 2nd pick of this draft. And now they have a interesting front court between him, Antonio Davis, Derek Coleman. They got some questions to answer, actually. Like Derek Coleman, he's getting close to 30 years old. The Hornets have only made 1 playoffs with Derek Coleman. So now they got Rasheed Wallace. You got to wonder what they're going to do with him. Damon Stoudemire going to the Blazers. So Stoudemire will kickstart a rebuild for the Blazers, be the point guard of the future. He played point guard for a number of years for the Blazers during the Jail Blazers era. And Rasheed Wallace went to the Hornets. Otherwise, I would go full Jail Blazers mode. Rebuilding the Jail Blazers would be fun, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Joe Smith to the Raptors. Of course, he was number 1 pick in real life in '95, but he drops down to number 5, right? Or number 4. Bryant Reeves goes to the Grizzlies just like in real life. And Tony McDyess is going to be a Hawk. So the Atlanta Hawks get a pretty solid, pretty damn good power forward. And Tony McDyess could be a building block for them for the future. Alan Henderson going to the Celtics. Curious choice. There's some other good names out there. Like Jerry Stackhouse, who's going to go to the Sixers instead of the Celtics. So kind of weird that the Celtics didn't go after him. And the Sixers drafted Stackhouse in real life. So he's actually going to go to the Sixers just like in real life. So that's going to be interesting. We'll talk more about the Sixers in a little bit. John Amici goes to the Wolves. Interestingly, not quite sure if I agree with that choice. There's a lot of other good players out there. Sean Respert, famous bust. I think, didn't he have cancer secretly? And then he played with it for a couple of years. That was kind of a crazy story. Mario Bennett to the Warriors. Corliss Williamson, another great pickup by the Blazers. We all know that he had a hell of a good career as a role player, a starter in the league. So that's a really good one. Kurt Thomas to the Mavericks. Mavericks are really good at picking up solid players. Kurt Thomas, a great player for a long time in the league. So it's going to be fun to see him out there. And then the Sixers have another pick, Gerard King. And then the Clippers get Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson's dad. Jalen Brunson's dad's in the league. Eric Williams to the Lakers. Michael Finley, that's a big one. Michael Finley going to the Pacers. That is big. He's a great player. And the Pacers might have just bought themselves like a whole 7-8 seasons of being playoff relevant thanks to that pick. Brent Barry to the Bucks. Corey Alexander to the Sonics. Theo Ratliff to the Sixers. That's another big pickup for the Sixers. He was an all-star at one point. He's a great player. Uh, Great for the Sixers to get him. Blowing past some of these other picks. Donnie Marshall to the Spurs. Kevin Ollie to the Pistons. Ended up coaching the UConn to the title in 2014 in real life. Eric Snow to the Sixers. Chris Carr to the Bucks. Quanzo Martin, Frankie King, anything else? Gary Trent. That's the end of the first round. Round two, I think there's still some guys. Randolph Childress, Junior Burrow, Jerome Allen, Matt Maloney. Matt Maloney to the Raptors. I really like that pick a lot. He was the starting point guard for the Rockets in real life, so I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out. I think he might be able to be a starter year one for the Raptors, given the fact that they're an expansion team and all that. So I'm really looking forward to that. Looking forward to some Matt Maloney. Fred Hoiberg also drafted. I don't think anyone. Ed O'Bannon, famous bust. Jimmy King, Dan Cross, Martin Lewis, Vanterpool. Anybody else? Cherokee Parks, Corey Beck, Michael McDonald, Nemard. All right, okay. Yeah, very fascinating draft. Kevin Garnett to the Pistons is gonna, he's a very loyal guy, so I can see him being on the Pistons for the next decade and then some. So I'm very curious stuff, very interesting stuff to see. Trades. Let's move on to the trades. You saw the Blazers Celtics trade, the Pistons Nuggets trade. Kendall Gill got traded from the Bucks to the Hornets for Nick Anderson. Yes, the Bucks are going to start to resemble more of the Orlando Magic. They can't get out of the first round. And whenever that kind of thing happens, I like to mirror moves that happen in real life because we know it worked. We know that Nick Anderson with Penny and Shaq, that worked in real life, right? So instead of trying to figure out something else, why not go with what we actually know worked? They went to the 95 finals in real life with Nick Anderson on that team. So Nick Anderson's going to go to the Hornets. I also just think that, Kendall Gill also actually played for the Hornets, and I think that's actually a good move for both teams. So I just happen to think that's a good move. Kevin McHale got traded to the Raptors to the Timberwolves. Kevin McHale went to college in Minnesota. He's going to finish his career in Minnesota. I thought that was an awesome idea. I think we jump into a few Wolves games, and I know it's going to be kind of weird seeing McHale not in a Celtics uniform. And he actually was the GM for the Timberwolves at this point. So I actually think that's kind of fun. Kind of fun for McHale to go to the Wolves and finish his career in Minnesota. I think that it makes too much sense, doesn't it? Meanwhile, Danielle Marshall goes to the Raptors in that trade. Larry Johnson traded from the Magic to the Mavericks for Brian Grant, Aaron McKee, Kurt Thomas, and 3 first-round picks. You might think that's an overpay. I don't know if I'd agree with that. I think that's a perfect amount of assets and young players. Mavericks want to make the playoffs with Grant Hill, and the Magic now get a nice foundation for their future. They get a great player in Brian Grant, some good role players in Aaron McKee and Kurt Thomas. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that changes the Magic, but also the Mavericks now with a duo in Larry Johnson, a trio really with him, Grant Hill, and Joe Dumars. Doc Rivers got traded from the Grizzlies to the Magic for Sleepy Floyd and Lamont Murray. The Pistons traded for Lindsey Hunter for a first-round pick. And then Scott Skiles is going to get traded from the Celtics to the Jazz for Jeff Malone and 2 second-rounders. And then we have a player-for-player trade, Robert Horry going to the Lakers for Doug Christie. So just nothing special about that. Just one player going to one team and one player going to the other team. So, and of course, Robert Horry played for the Lakers for a number of years in real life. But those are all the trades. Not a whole lot, but some pretty potentially impactful trades. Meanwhile, let's check out the rosters. Nick Van Exel, Jerry Stackhouse, Glenn Big Dog Robinson, Vin Baker, Elmer Spencer, Bison Daly Hinkgather, Sharon Wright, Shura, and Theo Ratliff. Eventually, I see Theo Ratliff becoming the starting center for the Sixers. Very interesting team. And check out this new court. I put this new court in here for the Sixers and changed their jerseys because 2K forgot to do it. They should have had these jerseys in court last year. I didn't realize it until I was looking through actual courts and jerseys of all the actual teams. So that's all changed. Sixers are very interesting. The Bucks, Penny, Nick Henderson, X-Man, Horace Grant is on the team too. Shaq, Jay Edwards, Robert Pack, Gary Leonard, Isaac Austin, Brent Barry. Yeah, this team is now more like the Orlando Magic than in real life than they ever been. Bullets are running it back. They have Michael Cage replacing Cliff Robinson now, so Cage is there in his place. But everything else is pretty much the same. Nate Blackwell, backup point, but everything else pretty much the same for the Bullets. So no real surprises there. Meanwhile, the Bulls, they still got the same starting five. Harper, Jordan, Pippen, King, Rodman. Fat Lever they got in free agency. Just in case they weren't good enough, they got Fat Lever. Jeff Sanders, Steve Kerr, John Sally, and Harold Presley. So, yeah, they're loaded again. They're trying to do a repeat of the previous season. The Cavs, Mark Price, Reggie Miller, Derek Key, Dale Davis. They got Dale Davis from free agency. He was a huge prize. Ralph Sampson, Detlef Schrempf, Ramil Robinson, Will Perdue, Vincent Askew, Willie Anderson. I think this team is going to be a serious playoff contender at least. We'll see if they can actually do more than just make the playoffs. And here it is, the new court that I've installed. 2K, for some reason, didn't want to do this. Didn't want to give the Cavs this court. I don't know what their plan was, but I was able to find this court within the 2K community, which I appreciate that very much. Thank you, 2K community. I found a lot of these courts from the community, from 2K, so I really appreciate being able to find this. And this is going to be fun. I mean, this court is nice and colorful. And it's the real court. It's the real court that they had at this time. That change should have been made last year, but I didn't realize it. I thought 2K had a reason why the court didn't change. I think they just forgot. But that court's in there now. Meanwhile, the Celtics, Khalid Reeves, David Wesley, Royal, Alan Henderson, Roy Tarpley, Chris Smith, Buck Johnson, no Bird and McHale. So this is going to be a very interesting year for the Celtics. They're starting from ground zero. That's what I wanted. I wanted to start from ground zero, like really start from scratch. And we'll see how this team does in 95. They're going to get a high draft pick surely in 96, 97. They're going to rebuild this team from scratch, and I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun. Clippers, Terrell Brandon, Blue Edwards, Dominique Wilkins, Chris Webber, Purvis Ellison. Pretty much running it back. Dennis Scott, Chris Washburn's on the team now. He was on the Pacers last year. You got Ed Horton. This team made the playoffs in 95. Can they do it again? I think they can. I think they can make it back. They're mostly a young team, so I'm really excited to see how this pans out for them. I guess really who's young is Terrell Brandon and Chris Webber. Everyone else is kind of either in their late 20s or Dominique Wilkins is in his mid 30s. So, but yeah, Webber and Brandon. That's a hell of a point guard, power forward duo. The Hawks, new unis, new court as well. And the 2K forgot to change their court too. I'll show you what their court looks like. I found that in the community as well. They have a rebuild team, kind of a team that's going to be a bit rough this upcoming season. But let's check out this court, guys. Yes. The lettering is a little bit different than in real life, and it says NBA League Pass. If you could ignore that, the fact that it says League Pass there, this is pretty damn close to real life. The real life 96 Hawks team. So I am very much excited about this court. The Hawks are going to be bad, but I'm hoping to jump into some Hawks games so we can see that court in action. Jazz running it back like usual. Scott Skiles on their bench. Chambers is declining, but overall pretty much the same team as usual here. We'll see if they can continue being a playoff contender, making the playoffs at the very least, or is this the year where they start to falter? I don't know. And then the Kings, they're running it back too with their starting five. Irvin Johnson is now on their bench. Sam Vincent, Danny Shays, Ronnie Murphy. Not the best bench, but they had to sacrifice having a good bench for the sake of having a really great starting five. So we'll see if that ends up costing them in the long run. And they got John Barry deep in the bench in reserve. But Barkley's back. The other four guys are back. We'll see how things go for them. The Knicks, Mark Jackson, Latrell Sprewell, Glenn Rice, Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing, same starting five as last year. Matt Bullard, Derek Chivas. Losing Dale Davis, I think, is going to be very costly for them. They got new uniforms, though. Some slight differences to the uniforms. And then, what am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, that's right. I realized that they didn't have Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward wasn't on any team, so I put Charlie Ward on the Knicks because why not? And let's check out this new court. I most remember this court when I was a kid, uh, when I would see Knicks games back in the day. So I'm really happy to see this court. This is the court that kind of gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling seeing that court. And we're going to be able to jump into some Knicks games with them in that court. So I'm really excited about that. Lakers are running it back. Really no choice but to run it back. They do have Robert Horry on the bench, though. And they barely made the playoffs last year. But, I mean, they got four guys 90 overall or better. So what the hell, guys? They got to figure this out. I know Magic Johnson's getting old. James Worthy as well. But, I mean... I looked into it, and it's like, how can they really improve this team without jeopardizing their future? And I didn't want to jeopardize their future because, kind of like the Celtics, Magic and Worthy are about to retire. Any season now, they're going to retire. So I don't want to jeopardize the Lakers' future because of that. Chris Childs, Joe Dumars, Grant Hill, Larry Johnson, Otis Thorpe. That's the 75 for the Mavericks. They have Derek Harper, Del Curry, Kenny Walker, Ronnie McRae now is on the team, John Fox. Rolando Blackman's back on the Mavericks. So can this team make the playoffs? I feel like they definitely are equipped to do so, but it's all about execution, right? It's all about, can these guys actually execute and make it that far? Can Joe Dumars and Grant Hill and Larry Johnson do it? The Nets, Tim Hardaway, Stacey Ogman, Sabalos, Roy Hansen, Ronnie Cycli, Winston Garland is on the team now, Grant Long, Clark Kellogg. Solid bench. You know, this is a make or break season for the Nets. They got swept by the Bulls last year, and Tim Hardaway, he signed a long-term contract with the Nets, securing himself financially. But you know, is it about time for the Nets to move on from Hardaway, or vice versa? Because they haven't really done much together, these two. So that's going to be something that we're going to be exploring this season, whether or not the Nets are going to be good enough to keep Tim Hardaway from leaving. From wanting to leave, for wanting to demand a trade. Nuggets, same starting five as usual. Terry Cummings replaced Charles Smith in the starting five. Charles Smith left for free agency, so that's actually kind of big that he's no longer on the team. But Terry Cummings, they're hoping, despite his old age, can pick up the slack. And, oh yeah, I sorry, if you could just excuse me for a second here. I got to just make sure Ron Grandison is in the rotation. What I usually do is I just want to make sure he's in the rotation. That's all. So I boosted him a little bit. I forget who's in the rotation in his place. Oh, generic. Casey Sims on the Nuggets isn't real. He's not a real player. So I wanted to make sure that Grandison got minutes because he's real, and Casey Sims, no minutes. So, Pacers. Starting five, same as usual. They were 44-38, kind of underwhelming last season, but they did beat the 61-21 Heat last year to make it to the second round, and they lost to a very good Bullets team. So I think this team could still do damage, and they got Michael Finley on the bench, getting some minutes on the second unit. So we'll see how things go for them. The Pistons, kind of an odd group of guys, but Kevin Garnett's right there. Going to get heavy minutes as a rookie, likely a Rookie of the Year candidate. So yeah, I mean, this Pistons team might not be very good, and then they're going to have a high pick in the 96 draft, I would imagine. So yeah, we'll see how things go for the Pistons. They're still laying down the foundation of the rebuild. They got a huge piece in Kevin Garnett. We'll see what else they can get in future drafts, but I'm sure they'll be pretty bad this year. Rockets have a big uniform change. They're completely changed their uniform and court. I had to find the court that most accurately depicted the real life court, but B.J. Armstrong, point guard, everything else pretty much the same for the Rockets. Obviously, they let go of Doc Rivers. Mario Ellie's on the bench now. Tyrone Hill's still there. Yeah, I mean most of the guys still there. Here's the court. Now I couldn't find the big rocket blast off graphic that goes up the middle of the court like in real life. I could not find that. I scoured through the community, couldn't find it. 2K didn't give it to me naturally, but I think this is as close to a compromise as I could get. Like, this court is still pretty damn cool. Obviously hugely different from their court that they used to have. So I'm really excited to see Rocket games here. They look way different. This is where we've made it to the late 90s, guys. We've really made it. We got this Rockets team with this uniform and this court. I love that blue, the blue and red combo there beyond within the arc and everything like that. So that's going to be cool. I also changed the court for the The Spurs, they have Avery Johnson, Dale Ellis, Ricky Berry, Charles Smith, David Robinson, Tom Gugliotta off the bench, Jerome Kersey, Vinny Del Negro, Malik Sealy, and LaSalle Thompson. And yeah, their court looks different too. I noticed that their court had gone unchanged for a couple of seasons now, and that's wrong. As I fix their rotation a little bit, I want to show you their court because once I realized 2K missed a few court design updates, I started to really look into it, started to do a deep dive of research, and then I realized that the Spurs had a different court too. They had a court back then that said Alamo Dome on either side of the court. You'll see it right here. This isn't exactly what it looked like in real life, but it's pretty damn close. All I really wanted was the Alamo Dome and some pastel colors for the paint there. But I think this looks really snazzy. I'm kind of excited about the Spurs now, jumping into their games because they have a nice new court too. Interesting color combination, so I'm looking forward to that. I also updated the Suns court. Like I really started to realize, man, 2K hasn't been updating the courts like they're supposed to be doing it, and the Suns. Same starting five as usual, and here is their court. I cannot wait to show you guys this. Damn! Now, it's not exactly the court in 1996, but it's close enough for me. If you could just ignore the fact that there's a Twitter handle right there. We gotta pretend that... Can you guys find me a 1996 reason why I would say at Phoenix Suns? And then we can just go with it. Because, listen, I scoured the community for the most accurate Suns court from 1996. This is the best I could do. There were some other courts that were a little bit closer to real life, but when I tried to download it, 2K wouldn't have the middle logo show up for whatever reason. This is the only court that I could find that most accurately represented the 96 court for the Suns with the middle logo actually showing up. So there you have it. But yeah, the Suns, they got Danny Ainge back still, Kenny the Jet Smith, Sean Elliott, Brad Doherty, and Danny Manning. And they got Sam Cassell off the bench. The Sonics, uniform change, court design too. Again, their starting five remains unchanged. Really, this offseason it's about the uniforms. It's about the courts. All right, the players are the players. Nothing really changed for the Sonics on that end. But they got the new uniforms. The uniforms that they were wearing when they made it to the 96 finals in real life. So those uniforms are kind of iconic in my brain. And the new logo. And check out this court, guys. Yes! Now, 2K, to their credit, they were the ones who updated this court for me. And goddamn, this court is so awesome! And they had the other court for the longest time. I realized that 2K should have changed their court at some point during the early to mid-90s. But it's alright. We got this freaking court. And we're going to get it till, I think, 2001 or so. We're going to have that court. Blazers also have a minor court change, which I'll show you. Their starting five is Terry Porter, Marshall Lawrence, Clarence Witherspoon, Anthony Mason, Vernon Maxwell. I eventually want to trade Terry Porter because Damon Stoudemire should be the starter at this point. But we'll get into that in a later episode. Let's check out their new court. Some slight variations. This is as close to the 96 court as I could find. But it's pretty damn close. The Rose Garden graphic on there. The center logo different. Yeah, this is pretty much the court that they actually had in during this period. So I was very happy to be able to get that. Those more subtle court changes. I'm glad I was able to get that. The Warriors, they're about a season or two away from a big logo, uniform, and court design change as well. And their team is pretty much unchanged, I think. Jason Kidd, John Starks, Isaiah Ryder, Terry Catledge, Juwan Howard. I think they're going to be pretty good. I don't know. Can they make a playoff push? I think they can. We'll see. Miami Heat, they also have a court change, which I'm going to show you shortly. But Gary Payton, Steve Smith, Rodney Rogers, P.J. Brown, Alonzo Mourning makes up the starting five. Nate McMillan, Buck Williams off the bench. Lamatunu coach, Charles Shackelford, etc. And Reggie Smith. Let's check out that court. Let's check out the damn court. You know, they had the yellow and red court last season, if you remember. Now we got the late 90s Miami Heat court. The red, the black, red, white combo here. Man, freaking love it. I'm waiting. I'm hoping we're gonna see some violent Heat Knicks games here. That's what I'm hoping for in the 96 season and beyond, because that's what I associate that core with. Jeff Van Gundy, like wrapping his arms around their players' legs or something like that. I don't know if that happened in Miami, but yeah, you get the point. Hornets, Rasheed Wallace in the starting lineup. Derek Coleman, Billy Owens, Rod Strickland still there. Kendall Gill, Antonio Davis, who I'm expecting to start at some point. I want Antonio Davis and Rasheed Wallace to be the front court eventually. But check out this court, guys. I updated this court too. Yes! Hell yeah! This might be my favorite one. This looks awesome. The paint there, the in the middle there, above the charity stripe, that's supposed to be a little bit different. It's supposed to resemble like a hornet's nest, I think. Right? But I couldn't find one that had the exact replica of the court. But this is pretty damn close. I'm fine with this. This looks excellent. I cannot wait to jump into Hornets games here. I hope they're good this season, because we gotta see Hornets games in this arena. It looks fantastic. It's so perfect snapshot of late 90s type situation here. So I'm really excited about this. And you know what? They had this court, I think, until they moved to New Orleans. So we got this court for a long time. Orlando Magic, they no big changes to their design, but they got a good starting five. Doc Rivers, Eddie Jones, Mashburn, Brian Grant now, Sam Perkins, maybe Brian Grant. Maybe it's a little bit too early for him to be 86 overall, but I want the Magic to be good, so it's all right. 2K, his progression kind of went crazy over the offseason, but it's all right. It's all right. But Magic, I think they could be damn good this year, finally. And it took trading Larry Johnson to do it, so be it. I guess that's what it takes sometimes. But yeah, Kurt Thomas is on the bench there. They should be an exciting team. What was I doing here? Oh, I think I wanted Kurt Thomas to get more minutes. I don't know what I'm doing here, actually. Oh, I moved Kurt Thomas to center. Okay, yeah. I forget what I was doing here. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, pretty balanced team that's going to be on the court now. Pretty a solid rotation. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Eddie Jones and Jamal Mashburn can do. Doc Rivers feeding them the ball. Brian Grant in the post, in the paint. Sam Perkins with his outside shot, stretch five. Timberwolves, they're a year away from a big logo, uniform, and court change. They got Kenny Anderson, Allen Houston, Kenny Green, Christian Laettner, Kevin Duckworth, and Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale finishing his career in Minnesota. I think that's cool. I hope you guys also think that's cool. And if you're a Celtics fan and feel betrayed, I mean, in real life, he retired in like 93, so whatever. We're going to get to see McHale as a Minnesota Timberwolf, so I think it's kind of cool. I hope you guys also think so. The Wolves, as far as the team itself, they only won 27 games last year. Will they improve? It's tough to tell. It's tough to know for sure. Then we got the Raptors and Grizzlies. Matt Maloney will be the starting point guard for the Raptors. In real life, he was a starting point guard for the Rockets, so why not have him start for the expansion team? I think that's going to be fun. Hubert Davis is there, Joe Smith, Scott Williams, Hot Rod Williams going to be the center, Tito Horford, Dave Johnson, Todd Lichty, Terry Davis, and Danielle Marshall. Some really exciting guys there. They're going to be bad as usual. There's Rowan Barrett, by the way, RJ Barrett's dad. He's there. And check out this court. This is courtesy of 2K. Now, I have to remember to make sure that there's a graphic up there that says like inaugural season 95-96. I cannot let that be there for next year because obviously it won't be 95-96 next year. So I got to make sure that's changed. But this court is fantastic. We definitely jump into a few Raptors games the first month of the season. So I can't wait to show you games in that court. Then we got the Grizzlies. Sleepy Floyd, Sean Green, Lamont Murray, Deion Thomas, Sam Bowie. Got Eldon Campbell off the bench, Kevin Edwards as well. And I believe Bryant Reeves is coming off the bench too. As we scroll down, we also got Wesley Person, Chanel Scott. And yeah, Bryant Reeves, there he is, big country right there. So let's check out the Grizzlies court. Last but not least, gotta love this court too. This is pretty damn close. Almost the exact replica of what the real life court looked like. And yeah, basketball in Vancouver. We won't have it for very long. A couple of seasons, right? So they moved to Memphis. I'm going to honor that because, I mean, you know, in real life, they just weren't able to turn the corner in Vancouver. And I don't know, maybe they could surprise and have a great team in Vancouver, but chances of that happening are slim because they're an expansion team. We've saw what happened in the sim with the Wolves and the Magic. It's tough sledding for expansion teams, especially when you're not able to get the number 1 pick for many seasons. So that's the end of this episode. Next episode is opening weekend 1996 season. We have made it. So many new courts to look at, so many new uniforms, new teams, excitement. Yeah, it's going to be really exciting this 96 season. Can't wait to show it to you. And that wraps it up for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you next time. Goodbye, everybody.